Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major General Andrew Bottrell. After 39 years of full-time service in Army, today is General Bottrell's last day in uniform. On behalf of us all, sir, thank you for your service. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association, and we welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Now, if you're able, I invite you to all please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories behind those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Arthur Oliver Emmins. Arthur Emmins was born on the 26th of December 1986 in Walthamstow, England, one of 9 children born to bootmaker Thomas Emmins and his wife Eliza. Arthur received his education at a London board school and went on to train as a bootmaker like his father. In 1913, the Emmins family travelled to South Australia, settled in the Adelaide suburb of Stepney, where Arthur found employment in the bootmaking trade and volunteered in the Citizens' Forces. Arthur Emmins enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 29th of June 1915. He was assigned to reinforcements of the 16th Battalion and began a short period of training in Australia. He embarked for active service from Adelaide on board the troop ship Ballarat on the 14th of September 1915. Private Emmins joined the rest of his battalion on the Gallipoli Peninsula in November. Having missed the bulk of the fighting, he was there for a matter of weeks before being withdrawn in December, when the Allies abandoned the campaign. He returned to Egypt with his unit and was transferred to the newly formed 48th Battalion during the expansion of the AIF. In May 1916, Emmins was promoted to Lance Corporal before embarking for the Western Front in June. After a week-long voyage, Emmins arrived with his comrades in the French city of Marseille. From there, they were immediately sent north to the Franco-Belgian border. Emmins spent the first weeks here training and taking part in work parties. In August, his unit was drawn into the fighting around the village of Pozières. The 48th Battalion was tasked with defending ground captured during early attacks by the 2nd Division. Entering the front lines on the 5th of August 1916, the men came under horrendous shelling and machine gun fire, enduring what is believed to be the heaviest barrage ever experienced by Australian troops. Emmins was hit by shrapnel, suffering devastating wounds to his leg. He was evacuated to England for treatment and remained in hospital until the end of the year. Emmins rejoined his unit in France in December 1916, just in time to spend a bitterly cold winter in the trenches. Soon after his return, German forces began their strategic withdrawal to the fortified Hindenburg Line. Allied units eagerly followed the enemy's retreat, believing the war was perhaps finally drawing to a close. It was not long, however, until this withdrawal halted at the enemy's new front line, near the French village of Billancourt. The Allies planned to mount an attack to break through German lines and capture the village. Emmins' unit attacked on the morning of the 11th of April, 1917, with cover provided by tanks rather than artillery. As the men jumped over the parapet, the tanks quickly proved to be worse than useless, and the attacking infantry were left exposed to murderous enemy fire. One of Emmins' comrades described the attack, writing in a letter home, "I tell you, it was hell let loose on that day. Our guns opened fire at 4 a.m. and the air seemed to be on fire with shells screaming over us. Of course, Fritz took a tumble that we were going to attack and opened fire in return, and it was awful. When we hopped out, the machine guns and rifles tore into us. Men were dropping all around, and when the officers saw the state of things, they ordered us to drop down, and what was left of us dropped into the shell holes and kept low. My mate had a bullet right through his ribs, and another poor fellow who made an attempt to go back to the trenches was shot dead." Forced to retreat, Allied units suffered more than 3,000 casualties in one day. Among the dead was Lance Corporal Arthur Emmins. One of his comrades recalled the last time he saw him. "I was with him in the Hindenburg Line at Billancourt and saw him hit first and wounded. Then about 2 minutes after, a shell came and killed him instantly. I do not think he was buried, except maybe the Germans buried him as we had to retire and left the dead and a good many wounded in the trench. I was with him in the 10th platoon for 4 months. He was a good pal. Emmins' body was later recovered from the battlefield and buried. Less than 2 months later, his brother, Corporal William Evans, was killed during the Battle of Messines. Today, Emmins' remains lie at Quant Road Cemetery beneath the words chosen by his family. Greater love hath no man than this, he died to save others. Arthur Emmins was 21 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Arthur Oliver Emmins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. Wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.